Remember sitting at the kitchen table, my palms sweaty, my voice small but steady. "Mom, Dad, I just need $100. Rent's due tomorrow and I'm short. I'll pay you back next week when my paycheck clears." I could barely look at them because asking felt like begging, and I'd already bent my pride down to nothing. Dad smirked without even glancing up from his tablet. $100? For you? Why bother? You'll just waste it like always. I clenched my jaw. It's rent, not waste. If I don't pay it, I'll be evicted. Mom leaned against the counter, sipping her wine. Her tone was sharp, her smile cruel. "Maybe you should learn how to live in the streets. It toughens people up. Besides, we don't throw money at lost causes. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video?" I felt my throat closing, but before I could answer, my brother Jason burst through the door, all smug and grinning like a prince. He was 23, unemployed, yet somehow always celebrated. "Guess what, guys? The breeder called back. The puppy's ready, $12,000, but he's perfect. Purebred, champion bloodline." Dad's face lit up. Mom clapped her hands like a child at Christmas. "Finally, a dog worth showing off." I blinked at them in disbelief. $12,000 for a dog? But you can't lend me $100 to keep a roof over my head? Jason snorted, tossing his hair like a spoiled brat. "At least he brings us joy. You don't bring anything." Mom added with a laugh. "Exactly. A dog gives us pride. You're just a bill." The sound of their laughter echoed through me like knives. I looked at the checkbook Dad pulled out, casually scribbling a 5-figure sum like it was pocket change. The contrast between my empty hands and Jason's new golden leash burned into me. That night, I lay awake in my tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling. My landlord's note sat on the table, final notice. My stomach turned as I thought about sleeping in my car, about my things boxed on the curb. But beneath the fear was something hotter, sharper, rage. I thought about every time they had cut me down while raising Jason up. Every cruel laugh, every moment I was told I was worthless. And now, a dog, a literal dog, was worth more to them than my survival. The next day, I went back to their house, not to beg again, but to watch. Jason paraded his new puppy, showing off the diamond-studded collar Mom had bought, while Dad filmed him like a proud parent. Their faces glowed with joy. Joy bought with the same money they'd refused me. I kept silent, but in my silence a plan was growing, one that would make sure their pride turned into shame, their laughter into choking silence. They thought the dog was untouchable, their new golden child. They had no idea that in choosing him over me, they'd handed me the perfect weapon. And as I walked back to my apartment, hunger in my gut and eviction looming, I whispered to myself, "They'll regret ever saying I don't bring joy." The eviction notice came the following week. A red slip taped to my door like a scarlet letter. My stomach twisted as I peeled it off. The words bold, 72 hours to vacate. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. I called Mom. "Please," I said, voice low but steady. "I'm being kicked out. Just lend me the $100. I'll pay you back." Her laugh was sharp. "Still crying about that? Maybe sleep in your car. Better than wasting our money." Dad took the phone. His voice was smug. "You made your bed. Now crawl in it. Jason and the dog are living here rent-free. And look how happy we are. That's called value, something you never had." I hung up before they could laugh again, but the sound of Jason in the background chanting, "Worthless, worthless," burned in my ears. I spent the night boxing my things, moving them into storage with the last of my paycheck. Then, I crashed at a coworker's couch, holding on to my pride, even as I felt it bleeding out. Every image of Jason posting pictures of the dog new bed, custom food bowls, photo shoots with Dad smiling in the background added fuel. He wasn't just their son, he was their trophy, and I was nothing but the mistake they wished away. That's when my plan sharpened. I realized I didn't need them to give me money. I needed to take away what they worshipped. The dog wasn't just an animal. He was their golden crown, their bragging rights. Destroying that symbol would cut deeper than any argument. But I wasn't stupid. I wasn't going to hurt the dog. I knew how to twist their pride into a noose without laying a hand on him. I started with Jason's social media. I made burner accounts commenting under every one of his posts. Buying status with your parents' money doesn't make you valuable. I knew it wouldn't sting yet, but it planted seeds. Then I got in touch with the local breeder community. One quick call pretending to be an interested buyer gave me more information than Jason ever should have shared online. People whispered about how much my parents had overpaid, how desperate they looked trying to flex. Word spread. At work, I doubled my hours. Every tip, every extra shift, I funneled into one thing: leverage. I found a friend who worked in animal rescues, who knew what it looked like when spoiled rich kids treated pets like accessories. We documented everything. Jason posted the puppy in costumes, being dragged to parties, loud music, champagne bottles in the background. None of it illegal, but all of it painted the picture of neglect. I packaged it carefully, anonymously. To the breeder, to a local pet welfare group, to the very donors my parents courted at their charity events. Suddenly, the whispers weren't just about how expensive the dog was, they were about how reckless Jason and my parents looked. Then I took it further. I remembered every cruel line Dad had thrown at me. At least the dog brings us joy. I decided to make that dog their curse. I printed the eviction notice they caused, circled the bold letters "failure to pay rent," and slid it into an envelope. On the back, I taped one of Jason's Instagram shots of the dog on a designer couch, wearing sunglasses. I mailed copies to every relative, every neighbor, every church friend they had. No explanation. Just the image of their dog dripping luxury, next to the proof that their own daughter had been evicted over $100. The fallout was instant. A cousin texted me, "What the hell is this? Is it true they let you lose your apartment while buying Jason a dog?" Neighbors started whispering. The family's perfect image cracked. When I checked Jason's Instagram later, the comments had shifted. No more cute pup. They read, 12 grand on a dog while your sister's homeless? You value a dog over blood? Disgusting! For the first time, Jason went quiet. Mom called me, voice furious. "What did you do? People are asking questions. Do you know how humiliating this is?" I smiled into the receiver. "Now you know what humiliation tastes like, and I'm not done." Her breath caught. She didn't laugh this time. She hung up. And for the first time in my life, I felt the power shifting. They had tried to bury me, but I had found the shovel. I waited until the morning of their big backyard welcome home brunch, the one they'd invited half the neighborhood to. The one where Mom planned to pose under the new pergola with Jason and his golden pup. It felt right to let their performance reach its peak before I pulled the curtain. I didn't crash the party with a scream or a sign. I walked in, clean, tired, wearing what I'd earned by working nights, and I carried a simple folder. Inside were copies of everything I'd collected, the eviction notice with my name, screenshots of Jason's dog photos, the texts where Mom called me a lost cause, and a short, plain letter to the neighborhood association and the local pet welfare group explaining that I'd been evicted while they'd spent lavishly on a puppy. I also had contact info for a community center director who I'd convinced to open a small hardship fund for people in my position. People were gathered in the yard, drinks in hand, applause fading as they noticed me. Jason laughed, waving. "Look who shows up," he called. Dad stood behind him, half proud, half annoyed. Mom's smile was already in place, practiced and bright. I stepped forward and handed one folder to the neighbor who'd always been first to compliment Mom's china, another to the woman who'd managed the charity galas, and one to a man with a camera, the local reporter I'd met months before. I met everyone's eyes and said, softly but steady, "Take a look. Decide for yourself." Nobody wanted to be the first to open it, but curiosity is louder than manners. The neighbor unfolded the eviction notice. Someone's hand trembled. The reporter's face went from polite interest to professional focus. He asked one question. "Is this true?" Jason tried to scoff. Dad barked for silence. Mom's color drained. I didn't argue. I simply told the truth in plain sentences where the money had gone, what I'd done to survive, the posts that had bragged about their dog while I scraped rent together. I explained I wasn't trying to wreck anyone's life. I just wanted people to know what their money had bought, not pride, but blindness. The reporter didn't need me to be dramatic. He ran the story that week, a short piece that showed the eviction notice beside the puppy's photo, quotes from neighbors who were surprised, and a call to the charities board asking them to address family conduct in their fundraising. Sponsors who had been happy to have Mom's name on a program suddenly asked for audits. The pet welfare group made discreet inquiries about the dog's living conditions after receiving the anonymous tips I'd sent. Jason's little sponsorships, weekend appearances, and local brand shoutouts evaporated as businesses pulled back from anyone attached to a budding scandal. It got uglier for them in public, and calmly surgical in private. Donors asked questions. Board members demanded transparency. A few of Mom's regular luncheon partners stopped answering her calls. Dad's business contacts began returning invoices with extra scrutiny. The neighbors I'd handed folders to stopped RSVPing. Their social calendar thinned. It didn't humiliate them into despair the way I'd imagined. Instead, it stripped them of the things they'd used to decorate their lives. Invitations, applause, easy praise. The dog stayed. I never wanted harm for him, but the diamond collar got sold quietly at a consignment boutique, and the money from it went to my rent and to a small fund I started for folks who'd faced sudden eviction. I bought a modest studio above a laundromat with a down payment I managed after a few months of extra shifts, and a small loan from the charity director who believed me. I didn't take everything by force. I reclaimed enough, legally and quietly, to build a life my parents said I didn't deserve. When Mom called to demand I stop, I told her where their donation checks were actually going now. Scholarships, tiny grants for people who needed help, programs that taught budgeting to kids like I had been. You gave us nothing but lessons in how not to parent, I said. I used what you loved to teach something different. Their faces went pale the first time they showed up at a community meeting, and no one rushed to hug them. The plaque with Mom's name at the charities gala was replaced with a donor list that didn't include her. Jason's calls about brand deals went unanswered. They had each other and the photographs on their walls, and the empty applause of strangers who still liked glossy images, but they had lost the easy tools they used to pretend their choices were honorable. I never celebrated by standing over their ruin. I opened my door to a neighbor's child who needed tutoring. I bought diapers for a woman who'd been evicted, and I sat with my daughter on mornings when the light came through our window in a way that made the cheap linoleum look like a home. Justice, for me, was practical. It was a roof over our heads, food in the fridge, and a tiny program that made sure another person wouldn't have to sleep on a curb because someone threw money at a pedigree dog. Their laughter had once been sharp enough to cut me. Now, when it surfaced at all, it sounded thin and surprised. The town no longer gave them standing ovations. They watched their comforts change hands and wondered where the applause went. And in the quiet hours when Mom looked around at her vacant invitations and Jason scrolled through a feed with fewer offers, I imagined Dad's eyes searching for an explanation that wouldn't fit into his old scripts. They taught me I had no value. I taught them how expensive that no value could be, not by destroying them, but by repurposing what they loved into something that would never leave a person out on the street again. That was the revenge I wanted, clean, unavoidable, and useful. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.